I didn't want to make waves for whatever reason. But you have to make waves if you're gonna be successful. You have to be confident. You have to speak up. You have to trust your gut. You have to trust your instincts. Sometimes you may be right. Sometimes you may be wrong. But you at least have to commit. And you've got to believe. Take a chance on yourself.
Working Fans Podcast. Cool.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Coming down 3, 2.
Hey, this is Dr. Tom Pritchard, and you're listening to the Working Fans Podcast.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Working Fans Podcast with Dave and AJ, and we are very lucky to have today a real, true veteran, a guy who's been around, one of my favorites, Dr. Tom Pritchard. Tom, how you doing, man?
Doing great, guys. How about you?
Oh, awesome.
Fantastic.
We've been interviewing a lot of people with wrestling schools lately. We just got off the phone with Ricky Morton a little while ago. And we had talked to Al Snow about a month ago. That was kind of one of the reasons why I want to have you on. I wanted to talk with your wrestling school and how it's going. And, you've been training for a while, obviously. But, what kind of caused this venture?
Well, yeah, we've just been in business a year now. So going on year 2, I think we're still trying to establish ourselves. And we've got a lot of people sending applications in and saying they're going to be there. But we'll just have to wait and see. I think anybody that's ever done a wrestling school is going to tell you the same thing. You don't really know how many people are serious about it or not. So, and it's a commitment. It really is a commitment. Ricky's got a hell of a school in Chuck, Tennessee, and he's got a lot of kids there. So, but we're in Knoxville, and it's one of those things that we've had people come from all over the country and find a cheaper living and kind of like this area. So. It's wrestling school, so you can have serious people, then you can have people who want to try and do it and have fun with it, see how far they can go with it, and that's cool too. So that's how we're doing, though. I think we had a pretty good first year. We've had some opportunities come along where guys got to be extras on Raw. They've got booked some shows around here. So, and we've had guys like Sheamus, Edge, The Revival, Natalya, Sasha. I'm sorry to say, who else came by? You know what I mean? And right before WrestleMania especially. So. Yeah, we've had a pretty good year so far. We're looking forward to a great 2020.
I think one of the big things that people need to remember, and hopefully the people that are thinking about wrestling or in the future hoping to wrestle, when you pick a wrestling school, I trained in the early 90s, and it was a lot different when I trained in the early 90s because you would go and you would train for a month or 6 months, and then you were basically working out on the road. You guys are established trainers and superstars that are going to give these guys a leg up and an opportunity if they work their butts off to actually have legitimate chances. You don't want to go get trained by Joe Schmo down the street when you can get trained by Dr. Tom Pritchard, who trained everybody from Kurt Angle to Edge to Christian and worked with all the superstars that you have seen over the last 20 years in the WWE, and one of the biggest superstars in WWE history, Kane.
Yeah, I mean, plus Knoxville's a pretty nice place to be.
There you go.
Yeah, all that added up for you, and if you really are serious about doing this, you can try different schools too. And I always tell people, we may not be your cup of tea. Somebody else may do it for you. So I always like to say this: you have your way, I have my way, but the right way and the only way doesn't exist. That's a Nietzsche quote, but it fits because you can kind of fit it in any way you apply to this entertainment business. There's still some basic fundamentals and principles that don't go away. I mean, it's still basics and fundamentals. You're still going to block and tackle. You're still trying to hit the ball over the fence. I mean, those things won't go away, so you can build on that. And without that, there ain't no other. And I think everybody agrees with that.
Amen.
Tom, I'm going to work a little backwards here. Well, usually we start at the beginning. We'll start at the beginning now. But the first time I saw you when I was growing up watching wrestling was, I want to say USWA, maybe Continental. It was on ESPN, 4 o'clock. And I loved your ring style. It was funny. I said to myself, even as a kid, I was like, this guy's voice is familiar. And then come to find out that your brother played Brother Love, and that's how I was kind of like drawing these conclusions. But when I was looking you up a little bit just to see like some information I might not have known, I was surprised in my research, and you can correct this if it's wrong, you were trained by the Iron Sheik?
Yes, I was trained by the Iron Sheik for about 3-4 weeks. A player in Houston, Texas, who thought, well, he could get into wrestling because that's easy money and he knows how to do all this stuff. And then some of his other friends done it too. So he comes down to the Houston office, and I'm working in the office during the summertime. And Gary Hart would come in early to go over the matches with Paul Bosch, and he brought the Iron Sheik with him. At that time, he was working as Muhammad Farouk, but he was just getting it pretty good. But he was really good anyway. But he was a shooter, and I always brought some workout gear with me, and Paul said, you can take him over to the Coliseum, and if you want to work out with him, go ahead. So I said, great. And we got in there, and the Iron Sheik stretched me in, the football player. Second week, after the second week, the football player didn't come back, and Cosner would come back like one more week after that. But he slapped me across the ear, he stretched me and put me in a hole. I still don't know what it was. But that was the extent of Iron Sheik. And once he left the territory, Nick Kozak and a guy named Joe Mercer had a ring down by a record service. This isn't around today either, I don't think. It could be, but I could be wrong. I mean, I don't know. Huh. But King Parsons would drive his dump truck straight to wrestling practice after work. And we'd start wrestling about 6 to 10 o'clock there, too. So, but yeah, the Iron Sheik, Nick Kozak, and a guy named Joe Mercer.
Dude, you ended up working for maybe in a promotion with Judo Gene LaBelle and his brother for a little while?
Well, yeah, that was the first full-time territory I went to. I was supposed to go to Oregon, but Gary Hart somehow maneuvered me into L.A., which was Mike LaBelle was promoter, but Gene was there and still doing stuff back and forth. And I was there for about a year, wrestled Fujinami. Yeah, who remembers Fujinami? Tatsumi Fujinami was world heavyweight champion, came into Los Angeles Olympic Auditorium at that time, was a famous building. Yeah, it was just a great time. Yeah, it was on the beach. You know, it was Los Angeles. It was Hollywood. You're right there.
You worked with a lot of legit tough guys.
Well, yeah, thank God I didn't have to, really fight them.
Right.
Thank God. Yeah. The closest I did one time was try to go behind Mr. Wrestling 2 in Georgia. And he went right behind, took me right down, and whispered, "Miss, that's a good way to get you your ass pinned, son." And I thought, yes, sir. See, that's the way those guys used to do it back then.
Oh, yeah.
That's funny.
Well, in that Los Angeles territory, you would have also had the Guerreros in there, too, right? Mondo and Hector?
Chavo and Mondo were in there.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, Hector, I thought, was somewhere else, but Chavo was the booker at that time. And then Chavo left shortly after I got in, and Tom Ernesto came in and booked. But yeah, that's where I first met Chavo and Mondo.
Yeah, I think that LA territory is one of the most underrated territories by some of the modern fans. I don't think they realize how much talent came through that area and the level of the wrestling.
Well, I think you would have had to have a flavor for that kind of wrestling to have a flavor for an appreciation for who came through there. In other words, I don't know that John Tolos would translate today what he translated back then. At the same time, he and Freddie Blas, they had this stage, and the Olympic Auditorium was a perfect building for it, and Los Angeles, California was a perfect place for it. It just had that feel to it. And then in the 80s, it went really down. But yeah, you would have had to appreciate that style of wrestling. Yeah. And I don't know that anybody today can appreciate it unless you'll know if you appreciate it. You'll know when you see it if you go, man, and you get some kind of connection to it. But if you just look at it and go, I don't get it, then it doesn't matter who came through there.
And with guys like Freddie Blassie, a lot of us remember, obviously, Freddie Blassie, the end of his time on Earth, where he was an older gentleman, and we saw him as the manager, and then later on, they don't realize the star that he actually was, and the bloodbaths that followed him.
Well, no. Yeah, they really don't, because it's from a different time and a different era and a different approach to the business. I mean, everybody back then took a different approach to it. So
absolutely.
Just to say, back to that basics and fundamentals of, what are you trying to present in your business? And that's the way those guys always hit it. That's why they were big stars, because they weren't pretending, they were actually being.
That's interesting, because I was kind of thinking about this, too, when everybody were talking about, it's almost like a reflection of society. Everybody does these crazy acrobatic stuff, which obviously is athletically challenging, but nobody wants to take the slow down approach of learning the psychology and the maneuvers, which to me, it almost kind of reflects society, right? Like everything is fast paced now. Like everything is done in instants. Like shows, you can watch 8 shows in a day. It just seems like that's kind of a reflection of where we are in life, right? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I sure do, because everything is moving fast and everything is moving to get your attention and keep you attracted or zoned in over here. So, I mean, yeah, everywhere we go, whether it's a restaurant or a TV show or whatever it may be. I mean, yeah, it's kind of a tricky thing. It really is. I just said, what do you do to get everybody's attention?
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny. Yeah, I was talking to a bunch of older fans too. Well, I say older, but we're all in our 30s and 40s. But, we grew up on like watching shows on a weekly basis and like building towards this pay-per-view. And nowadays, a couple friends who are telling me like they don't even like to wait for a TV show. Like we were watching The Mandalorian, the Star Wars thing that came out on Disney Plus, and it would come out every week. And that was like one complaint, was everybody had to wait a week to see the next episode. And I'm like, man, like I remember like growing up watching wrestling, like watching this build, like when Hogan and Savage, it would take like a year,
Right, but you didn't have the internet, you didn't have all this stuff to keep you busy and occupied.
True.
That was all you really had. Yeah, I mean, it was a different time, different era.
Yeah.
In the world, and what do you have to do now? It's global. Everything we do is instant. So I mean,
right.
Yeah, it's a tough gig, man.
Yeah, it is.
So now I'm going to bring it back to you and focus a little bit on your career, Tom. I got to see you first in the CWF and then also the USWA, like Dave, and I give you credit all the time that a lot of people overlook sometimes, in my opinion. Everybody talks about guys like Ricky Morton for selling and what he was able to do in the ring. But I think people who didn't grow up in the South and didn't get to see a lot of that different style of wrestling might not be as familiar with what you were able to do in the ring. You were really, really good, even though obviously you had runs where you did really well and were on top. You made other people look fantastic with your selling in the ring. Do you find that that's a little bit of a lost art now?
I think just what's lost is being able to have that chance to go in there and ad-lib like that. I mean, it takes three people in a match to take your opponent, the referee, and you to make that whole thing happen. Yeah. So I think it was just a Southern style, and I kind of like that. I grew up in Texas. So, I mean, I don't know. I was happy working the Southern style. I mean, but you can't take anything away from that Ricky Morton, especially doing the Canadian Destroyer or whatever the hell they say.
Oh, God.
Yeah, he scares me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, hey, that's I'll give Ricky props for that, that's for sure.
Yeah. Actually, that's kind of funny because the next time I had saw you was in WCW, but you were coming up from Smoky Mountain Wrestling. You were part of the Heavenly Bodies at that point, I want to say, with Stan. And you guys had a run with the Rock and Roll Express. I think you may have even been on the Super Brawl pay-per-view. Is that right? I'm trying to think.
Yeah, we were on Fall Brawl, I think.
Okay.
In Johnson City. Yeah. Yeah, but that was short-lived because I think, no, we can't go watch and then Bill got fired.
Oh, right.
Or whatever. Yeah. So, So that could have been a pretty nice run, and it kind of turned into what we did in WWE or WWF, and that was okay. But I think Ricky would tell you the same thing. Maybe it just wasn't. I don't know. If they want to say Styles Clash, maybe that's it. We'll hang it on that. How about that?
Okay.
Styles Clash.
I preferred it in Smoky Mountain. You talk about, once again, that Southern style. You guys were able to tell that story there. The fans were all sitting on the edge of their seats. They were enjoying the shows. And what you guys were able to do, both with Stan and then later on with Jimmy Del Rey, what, in my opinion, was fantastic. And do you think that the Southern crowd just gets it a little bit more than maybe translating to the WWE style?
Yeah, you could say it like that. I mean, they definitely get it a different way than the other guys get it because they want to enjoy their wrestling, and I appreciate that because these people still, even at this stage, there are some who kind of get this East Tennessee or Tennessee wrestling with Ron Wright, Ron and Don Wright, kind of that Southern type stuff,
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I think I don't know. There's some kids and still look at it and go, man, I just don't get it. And they want to see the flip flop and fly. So, but most of the Southern crowd, they want to come in and yell and scream and get into it with boys, and the boys will yell back, and then they'll go out and have a good old time. So yeah, that was Southern wrestling, I guess.
Like you were saying too, like eventually you ended up being with Jimmy, and you guys got a run from Smoky into the WWF. And I remember a match you guys had with the Steiner brothers. I really loved as a kid. I thought they did a great job working with you. Like I thought the styles blended well. So it seemed like I saw a lot of you in tag team wrestling. Is there a particular favorite or maybe a couple favorite tag teams you really liked working with?
As far as I was with?
Whether it be with Jimmy or Stan, but like a rivalry, maybe a matches you had as the Heavenly Body. Was there a particular team you loved working with?
Always the Rock and Roll Express. It was like night off every night. So, and even the Bruise Brothers at times, I love Ron and Don both, and they were good guys, but they knew they were big, and sometimes they just wanted to be big and bullies. And but they were doing it in that way, like, you know it's coming, so get ready for it. And it was a lot of fun with it sometimes. So, that was the kind of match. Even the Steiners were good.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, I don't remember having, and the Smoking Guns. I mean, Billy especially was so passionate, you could tell, and it was all pretty good.
You had a brief run in ECW as well? I didn't see this. I was reading about it. Is that correct?
Yeah, I worked with, I think we worked with, Jimmy and I worked with Public Enemy, and I worked with Candido there in a singles match, Chris Candido. We were, and I think
I was wondering, like, I didn't know, but it sounds like, what were those crowds like comparatively? Like the Southern crowds? Yeah.
Oh, no, they were a wrestling crowd.
Yeah.
No matter what, they would tell you what they thought of you, honestly.
Right.
So they were a good wrestling crowd. Yeah, and that's, I think you have those some places today. I know you have those some places today because you can see it, and there's a place for it, obviously. But how long? I mean, I don't know. How long will it go? Who knows? But the ECW crowd was there as long as ECW was going to be there.
Yeah, it's funny, like, you say that, too. I would say that, like, even, like, growing up, for me, for whatever reason on TV, Chicago always translated to a really good crowd.
Oh, yeah.
No matter what promotion I was watching.
Yeah, Chicago's got a good crowd. Chicago's got a good wrestling crowd for everybody there, I think. Even for Rise and Earl stuff they have there, and a lot of stuff. MLW there, great.
Yeah,
a lot of good stuff.
I'm glad to actually hear you mention Rise. I think I'm a big believer in women's wrestling. I'm a firm believer that the level that we're seeing now is absolutely incredible, and I'm glad that they're getting opportunities. Have you had a chance to train any of the women wrestlers of today?
No, I really haven't. Natty's come by, Beth has come by just to get in the ring and get some rust off, but nobody that's coming up in WWE or NXT today. We've had a couple girls come through JPWA that are always off, and they know that. So, but no, I really haven't. It's, again, come back around full circle, especially for the ladies. So, got away from real wrestling for a while, got away from some of the athleticism, I guess. Now they're coming back to it, which is great to see.
Absolutely. I think sometimes they lose sight of the fact that it says wrestling on the marquee. So it's great to see the level that you're seeing both in NXT, places like AEW, now obviously with NWA being back, and seeing more of a focus on the wrestling product in those organizations and in those places. A hard-hitting question for you. You went to the WWE after being a Heavenly Body, and they came to you and they said, we're going to team you up with Chris Candido. We need to get rid of that hair. What was your reaction when they told you were going to get rid of that gray hair?
Well, at first I said, no, I don't think so. And they said, okay. And that was it. And I said, oh, wait a minute. Let me think about this. Because it was, it was at a time when I really, it was a different time. And I went ahead, it was Chris, and I was just willing to do what I had to do. And teamed with Chris, and man, it was not a good time for me.
No,
I don't think it was goofy, but quite honestly, that was on me for just saying yes, just not questioning, not even coming up with another idea. So
now I do have to be fair to both of you, because whether the idea was bad or not, I think the two of you actually did make the most out of it, in the sense that you guys still put on great matches out there with teams like the Smoking Guns, the Godwins, and stuff of that nature.
Right, but I think that's just part of being a pro, and in the ring is when the only time you're really having a good time. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean?
Right.
No, I get that.
Yeah. So if you follow me on that, you're in the ring, and we're all four trying to have a great match and do what we can do. But even then, we look, the gimmick
Yeah.
sucked.
That was horrible.
It really did. It really did. Tammy was there. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to go down that road, but I'm just saying it was terrible.
Al Snow said that too. He said he regrets not questioning enough stuff like back in the day.
Yes.
That's on him, right? Yeah.
I didn't want to make waves for whatever reason. But you have to make waves if you're gonna be successful. You have to be confident. You have to speak up. You have to trust your gut. You have to trust your instincts. Sometimes you may be right. Sometimes you may be wrong. But you at least have to commit, and you've got to believe. Take a chance on yourself, and that's a big thing that I preach now, especially. Is you must have confidence if you believe you're a star, and you got to believe you're a star.
I agree totally on that, and I think that applies for like any job too. Like I've been in places where I work and didn't want to make waves, and yeah, it's okay. You can exist for a little while, but you're not gonna excel.
Right.
It wasn't too long after that. You ended up at the WWE dojo. You were a trainer. How was that transition? And beyond that, what was it like working with? When I look at the list, like some all-star wrestlers like Kurt Angle. Man, we don't really take shots, but I know the guy's not in the business. But comparing to him to like maybe working like with a Brockus, like you had a lot of different type talent there, I guess is my point. So the transition and what was it like working with some of the best and maybe not some of the best.
Well, you would have also worked with Brock Lesnar also when.
Right. The transition turned out to be pretty cool, actually. I mean, I was able to stay in Stanford. I was missing the road, yes, but I was still going on the road for TVs and some other stuff, I think, like this, too, which was kind of cool. I was doing voiceovers at the same time, so it all kind of ties in. And when we started, it was just the three of us, Mark Henry, Brockus, and Brock, in the studio, in the warehouse. And they used to hate us because we'd take bumps, and they'd have to shut down because the bumping would bleed through into the studios. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they hated. Yeah, but I mean, it trans bigger and bigger, and then started sending guys to Memphis. Started sending guys, I believe, to Memphis, and then it was Louisville and Cincinnati. So it kind of expanded, and then it evolved into what it evolved. So, but the transition was great, and working with guys like Brockus was just as good too, because he was a good-hearted guy, but. There's an opportunity to go out and see if I can have a match, and it was what it was. Some people can't do it.
Right. Tom, like we were saying at the beginning, you got the wrestling school with Kane. Is there anything else? We're going to wrap this up here. So is there anything else you want to talk about with the school or promote?
For all information, you have anything you want to know about the JPWA, go to jpwrestlingacademy.com. You can type us a question if you have it. Go to Facebook, too. I think it's Jacob Pritchard Wrestling Academy, or just put in JPWA.
All right, Tom, thank you so much.
All right, so that wraps us up for this week. Thank you again for listening to the Working Fans Podcast. So as always, you can find us on Twitter at FansWorking. Our Facebook page is Working Fans Wrestling Pod. We have email where you can reach out to us and let us know what you think also. That's workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram, workingfanswrestling_pod. And then as always, please continue to listen to us on Anchor.fm, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, all your major platforms. If you're following us on Apple Podcasts, which we are also on now, and YouTube, please make sure you subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. It helps us bring you these podcasts where we get to talk to you and talk with you every week.
Jesse, nice to meet you, by the way.
Oh, yeah, this is Dave. You've heard him.
Yeah. How's it going?
I've heard you plenty. Yes, buddy.
Working Fans Podcast. Cool.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Coming down 3, 2.
Oh, yeah.
Cut a promo for us, bud.
This is Jesse from New Hampshire here. And when I'm not making the 531 list, I'm actually listening to the podcast. This is the Working Fans Podcast.
We are on the Working Fans Podcast here. I have not only my closest friend in actuality, but my closest friend in terms of wrestling fan, because I think just about just about everything I've seen, I've heard, I've read, I've listened to, he's just about on par with just about everything else. So this is Jesse. He is a trophy husband and quite the DILF, I would say. My best friend. Jesse, you want to say hi to the fans?
How's it going, guys?
There he is.
Also known as Jesse from New Hampshire.
Also known as Jesse from New Hampshire.
We might edit out government names here.
Yeah. So Jesse, I'm trying to think now. Literally, I was just thinking about this the other day, but it's good for context. I feel like the first time we actually did meet, me and Jesse's, a long story short, me and Jesse's families, our uncles, his dad and everything, my aunt, they all knew each other in the 80s before we were born. And Jesse, I don't know how, I guess my uncle must have told me, but the first time I remember, at least I can picture it in my head, at least, I don't know if I can picture it right, my brain's taken a beating over these years. But I feel like the first time I met you, you were wearing a Hardy Boys shirt on the playground at Cohansey School in Waterford, Connecticut, if we can get that deep into government info. And I was like, holy shit, he's got a Hardy Boys shirt on everything too. But then I feel like too, I mentioned the family stuff, but either way, we kind of had the same connection right off the bat.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually going to say that's how we met.
That is it, yeah, okay.
I remember that day vividly. We met on the playground. You know, you're like, oh, wow, you got a Hardy Boys shirt on? I was like, yeah, I watch anytime I can. And at that time, I was like, beginning fandom, but I was full bore into it. Like that Hardy Boys shirt, I had a pair of black jeans that matched it.
That's right. I remember that.
I was living the gimmick. So any chance I could wear that black jeans and that T-shirt, I did. And that was almost every day, too. Like I had that in the washer almost every day after school just so I could wash it and wear it.
Yeah, Matt and Jeff, if you hear this, you had a hell of an influence on two chubby white kids from small town Connecticut. I just want you guys to know.
And especially when you're in elementary school and you find somebody else that's a wrestling fan,
Oh, yeah.
there's a certain amount of time where it's cool, and then it's almost like, oh man, it's you and me that like something now. So you get that more of a connection.
Not to interrupt you guys either, but just because that's the one thing I can connect on with you. Like me and AJ became friends literally for that reason.
Oh,
we were
okay.
wrestling fans in high school, been friends now 25 years later.
Right.
So, like, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, too, like I was telling you before, Dave, like, for my generation, our Hogan era and everything, too, I mean, people that stopped watching wrestling after Hogan, they were obviously still in the Hogan era, same thing with Austin. So our generation was obviously Attitude Era. This must have been what Jesse, 99, so 98, 99, whatever, somewhere in there. But obviously, yeah, the Attitude Era. So everything was boom and huge. Both shows were friggin' on fire. So not everybody that you saw is still wrestling fans today. But I mean, Jesse, I think still is my closest friend at that point with the family connection, obviously, too. But definitely a point of where, yeah, I can remember a couple other fans like that. But in terms of people that stayed along the whole way, then yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely remember, like, all of elementary school, then partially in the beginning of middle school, that's when everybody died off. And then
Right.
it was like, wow, you guys are still watching that shit? And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, where did you guys go with it? And, you know?
Yeah, and then I got into a little bit before, like I said before on the show too, a little bit before. Like I said, I can't remember my first memory and stuff, but I don't know. I think too, there's people that definitely stayed on after the Attitude Era boom, but that's a whole other discussion about that killing people off, but yeah.
Yeah, I could pinpoint exactly for you guys when I became a fan.
Oh wow, when was that?
All right, it was the summer of 2000, actually. Mind you, at this point, I have some sort of recollection of wrestling on TV, but I was more into, at the time, and still am, baseball and NASCAR. And, like, for toy-wise, I was into, like, Matchbox cars, like Power Rangers, Batman figures, and stuff like that. Anyways, I'm over at my aunt's one night during the summer. Then all of a sudden, her and my cousin are like, oh, wow, it's 9 o'clock, Raw's on. I'm like, wait, what? What's Raw? And they're like, oh, you'll watch. And then they put it on, and I'm like, holy crap, what is this? I've never seen this before. And it was like a Hardy Boys, Edge and Christian match, and I'm like, this is crazy. And ever since then, I've been hooked. And I remember the first pay-per-view I ever watched live was actually that summer, too, was SummerSlam. You guys can attest to this. That card top to bottom is phenomenal.
Right.
That was the first ever pay-per-view I ever saw, and I'm like, wow, this is something I really need to, fixate on now instead of, everything else.
Yeah, and for me too, quality-wise, WWF in 2000 was friggin' outstanding, like the roster and everything. I think one thing, at least, that for 2000 era, like, I don't know, just between, everybody can kind of agree. For me, the Attitude Era kind of ends at Mania 17 with the Austin turn, but I feel like with the Attitude Era, like, 98, 99 is it. Once it gets to 2000, you like the Radicals in there, Austin starts taking more time off, stuff like that. It's definitely not the same it was, like, if you started, like, 98, 99.
Well, before we even get into that, let's kind of discuss the gap in fanship we have here, because Dave's a little older than me, but I'd say we kind of caught on in the Hogan, like, early WCW when it was coming over from Crockett Promotions.
Right.
And you guys are about 10 years younger, so your Hogan moment would be Brett and kind of early, just before the Attitude Era, would I guess?
For me, Hogan, the first time I saw Hogan was 95 WCW, like before the NWO stuff. Like,
So did you see him turn heel?
I mean, not actually as it happened, but I remember, like, the NWO story. Like, yeah, I remember the whole vague, like, I remember...
So you just knew Hogan as a heel?
Right, and I mean, I was still young enough. I mean, I would have been, like, 3, going on 4, stuff like that. But I got to a point where I kind of clicked with stuff to be like, oh, shit. Like, Razor Ramon and Diesel, like, I just saw them here, that's this. Meanwhile, being a kid growing up, I was renting all sorts of tapes from Blockbuster where I would watch, like, Mania 6... And then later on, I'd watch, like, actual TV, and I'd like,
yeah,
I think it should have still been Hogan and Warrior, but I was like, I didn't.
You were deep diving at, like, 5
years before that. Was like, so I was like, wait, like, what is this guy like?
And that's crazy because I remember Hogan turning heel, and that was about when I stopped watching wrestling. Because to me, the NWO just got too big and it just got too messy. And at that time, I also just kind of fell out with wrestling. So it's kind of weird how my falling off with wrestling is where you guys picked up. Now, you had referenced Drunkenly at Dodge Stadium one time, and on the podcast that you and Jesse used to wrestle in the backyard and almost cripple each other.
Almighty.
Eventually, we're going to get Jesse and Sheaf's grandma Mary face to face so we can talk about the coming up of the wrestling in the backyard. But tell us a little bit about those times, because you guys almost grew up during the backyard wrestling craze.
Right.
We did it, but it was just stupid as... Oh, you didn't?
No.
I wrestle people. I've pile-driven my brother multiple times.
Oh, yeah.
He's choked me out. He pile-drove me on a fucking suitcase.
We did
was
shit
wild.
like that. Yeah, we didn't have, like, cards or anything like that.
But you warned a young, chubby kid at Dodge Stadium not to get fucked up and cripple your friends in the backyard. What did you guys do in the backyard?
Jesse, I just gotta think for it, because I mean, for me, the most memories of it is just fucking. This is like ECW was on TNN, the FMW tapes are on America, and like
you say that like it's normal, like every 8th grader is gonna get an FMW tape.
Yeah, nothing.
Yeah,
but
honestly.
that's just the shit that was like going on to that point.
Where did you get the FMW tapes?
So I'm gonna let Jesse speak on this after too. His perspective of it. It was either Suncoast, or Strawberries, one of those.
Because I picked up one of those FMW. It was the Insane Clown Posse, the Juggalo.
That's
Yeah, Stranglemania, right?
That's
which annoyed the fuck out of AJ, by the way.
What?
He says to me,
we're gonna have words about this. Stranglemania is my high school.
Oh, love it. So he says it to me. He goes, "Yeah, all they do is swear," and I'm like, "Well, so who gives a fuck?" And he goes, "Well, it's like it's all they do," and I didn't get it. And then I played it. And I'm like, oh yeah, they really do. But it's one of those things like Pulp Fiction. When to me, like I liked it, but then I watched it again and I fucking like it more.
No, when you watch the powerbomb where they drop him on his neck and it goes, back, back.
Is that the second one?
I don't know which one it was.
Nash thing with Eric Bischoff, where it just freaking during the NWO promo, it like rewinds them power bombing him off the stage.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But yeah, get back to your backyard wrestling thing. We went off on a tangent.
But no, I just remember
Juggalos,
right? Doing a lot of hardcore shit like that. Like I want Jesse to speak his memories because later on I had a trampoline and that didn't last long in either of my mom's or dad's houses because shit was just so beyond reckless.
What was the worst move you guys pulled on each other? Canadian Destroyers?
I want Jesse to speak because we can't keep talking over. I want his perspective first.
Back to the FMW thing. This is like when Sheaf and I first started hanging out. So I'm over at his house, right? And mind you, this is like peak wrestling figure era too. So
Oh yeah, we gotta talk about figures after. Yeah.
I'm bringing over all my wrestling figures. We're playing, we're bullshitting, and then he's like, "Oh, I gotta show you this," and then he puts on FMW, and I'm like, "What is this?"
We're in
And I'm like,
second, third grade or something. Mike.
yeah, I'm like, what is going on here? And I was like, I wasn't really like, I wouldn't say scared, but I was more like oddly weirded out, but still wanted to watch. It was like an R-rated movie that I wasn't supposed to watch, but I kept watching because I knew my dad wasn't there,
Right. It's like that first tape I remember getting, that May 5th, 96 show where they got that cactus match, and like first watching, he was the only guy I recognized, and I don't know if I knew who Terry Funk was by that point, but he was in the main event. So I'm like, oh, that's Cactus Jack, that's cool. 10 minutes later, he gets thrown through like glass and barbed wire, and I'm like, this is the goddamn craziest fucking shit. My grandma is watching with me going, what the? My grandma, she was like around my grandparents, that's all, we'll get her on the show, but she was like the Killer Kowalski Bruno era. The Attitude Era, enough for her was like Howard Stern. She's seeing motherfuckers getting put through glass and shit. No wonder she was fucking swigging Captain Morgan like that.
She's a goddamn saint to watch people go through glass and be like, oh, this is good for the youngin'.
Yeah.
Wow.
So either way, yeah. So
My dad won't watch two Japanese guys beat the fuck out of each other. He'd be down for that.
Takes him back, probably. Place he doesn't want to be.
Get him, Tojo.
So Jesse, so another thing you mentioned was the figures. That was a big thing we bonded over too. I mean, like you guys had like back for like LJN Hasbro stuff back. Like I'm talking crazy figure hits.
I had the
like
big
that.
rubber fucking dudes.
Right.
See, I had the shitty ones that you'd push the back down and they jump.
Yeah.
But then they morphed into the slightly
Hasbros.
alright ones.
You
But
had
by
the
that-
Hasbros.
Yep, the old Hasbros. And I mean, I had a bunch of wrestling figures. Scott had a ton of them.
My neighbor was an elderly woman. She grew up in that same neighborhood, or not grew up, but either way, lived in the same neighborhood next to where my grandma's house is. Her grandson, when I was growing up a wrestling fan, had a bunch of old Hasbros, and I don't know, I must have been maybe like, I don't know, 4 or 5 or something, and they gave me a huge fucking bag of them and shit with a ring and stuff. So I was, meanwhile, I played too. This was like, I don't know, after 2 when they started making ladders for figures and all this crazy shit. And I'm like, oh, here's a Roddy Piper. You fucking press him and he jumps halfway across the room all
those
shit. I'm like, what the frig is this? Like, but yeah.
That's funny how like some of our early wrestling figures were hand-me-downs, because I got one from my cousin, R.I.P. Mike Miller. But it was the old Road Warriors. I don't know if it was an old AWA one.
They had
It
AWA.
had like
It had to be
the
the
Remcos?
Yeah, Jesse knows.
It had like the squishy head, but like the solid body
yeah.
where you can
That's
move the
AWA.
arms. And
That's
I
right,
remember,
those are Remcos.
I didn't even know that he was a wrestling fan, but I had Hawk and Animal from the time I was like 4 or 5.
Yeah, if you were if you were a kid like that, you didn't have them. You're fucking up. No,
So what are your most memorable toys between the two of you from your whole time? Like, what's the prize?
I remember getting my first wrestling figure. I was at Toys R Us with my dad, and there was a Triple H on the shelf. Because back then, besides the Hardy Boys, like Triple H was like the end-all, be-all. That was my guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember getting a Triple H, and he came with a table. And all I did was keep on setting up Triple H on top of the TV and letting him fall right through the table. And I did that freaking 100 times, and I was the happiest kid ever.
And we were-
Freaking 8 years old.
And we were just talking about this. That Triple H, it didn't even look like Triple H. It looked like friggin' Jerry Lynn in the face. We're like, what the heck is this about?
It looked like a smoked out Jerry Lynn, clean shaven.
What Jerry Lynn be smoking though?
Yeah, something definitely that's not good for his lungs.
But I don't know. For me, the first 2 figures I remember having, I guess those WCW, like the bulky ones, like the Sting and the Vader. I remember those were like my first 2 ones, so those were a lot of fun. But then after, I'd have to say like the later WWF ones where they started making like tables and ladders and shit, like the Hardys, all that. The ECW figures were fun. Like, yeah, having a Sabu action figure.
They ever make a New Jack action figure?
Yeah, and I remember.
What?
Yes, they
There's a
did.
few
Wow.
different ones. If you guys ever listen to Hawkins and Ryder's Wrestling Figure podcast, there's like a few different New Jack ones, because Hawkins is a big ECW guy, if you guys didn't know that. And he has, I think, every single variant and every single figure ever made from ECW. And the last person he needs to complete his autograph collection is New Jack, and he can't ever see New Jack because when the hell is New Jack going to show up to a TV taping?
Yeah, where's his NXT managerial run?
You know what's funny is
Can you
they have
imagine New Jack and the Street Profits?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
They have New Jack dolls, but Al Snow's the only doll that was ever banned from Walmart.
The head?
The head. Yeah.
I
It's
remember that.
going to cause people to want to beat their wives, apparently.
Right.
Yeah.
I think for now, I got one. I got a couple old ones from Jesse's gave me some. Me and Jesse have gone back and forth with so many of them over the years. It's like we got joint custody of them. But there's one that I have where it's like I bought this. I don't know, maybe like I can't even remember. Sometime in the last 10 years. But I got a Hayabusa figure in the box.
What?
I paid about like 60.
How many yen? You paid yen.
Yeah, but it was like 60 or 70 bucks.
They're
It was
more
a whole-
expensive now, if you guys are wondering. They're upwards of like 80 to 100 or more.
Yeah, the Japanese figure community. You don't know beauty till you see a friggin' Jushin Liger statuette.
Do you have it?
I know. Oh, the Hayabusa I have. It's in
okay.
a box, but yeah, it's pretty sick. They make a bunch of them when you look at it too. They make some really cool shit. But yeah, that's probably the most one that's like prized, I guess.
Now, moving from your guys' childhood to growing up, you mentioned Jesse as being instrumental in bringing the belts into the BBPL.
Right.
Jesse, what was kind of your thoughts about the early BBPL, and what made you think about introducing belts?
Well, I remember like our friendship at the time, it wasn't really strained, but it was kind of removed. Like it was a little bit after high school. I was coming up to New Hampshire a lot before I eventually moved up here. You know, I'd come, you know, I'd be at the house or I'd be up here and whatnot. Anyways, go over to Chiefs and he's like, yeah, we play beer pong every weekend now. And I'm like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, I played beer pong all the time in New Hampshire. So he's like, yeah, we kind of set it up like, you know, like, oh, we face this person, you face that person, kind of like a tournament. And then, you know, we kind of
Everyone
like
could work a man.
That's right.
like almost like a wrestling aspect on it. And I'm like, oh, all right. So then we started doing that. And then I remember, I can't remember exactly, but I'm like, oh, we should, you know, I still have belts, like the foam jack specific ones from back in the day. I'm like, I have those, we should play for those so we can crown champions and all that. I'm not sure exactly that's how it went, but I want to say that's because there was a lot of, back then and still now, there was a lot of beers and a lot of stuff smoked, so I can't really remember exactly what the conversation was.
Yeah, all we were smoking were crushed up TNA DVDs. But no,
we'll get to the hell ride from a couple Christmases ago eventually.
One thing I want to touch on, though, at least, I mean, I know Jesse wasn't a big Jesse wasn't a WCW guy at all, at least then, too, towards the end of things.
Wow.
But one thing I want to touch on...
towards the end of things. I forget what WCW you guys had.
Right. At least being a fan after things, discovering new stuff. It wasn't until, like, I would say... end of middle, like 7th, 8th grade, when TNA started popping off big, and like started seeing indie stuff.
Holy shit!
Yeah, we couldn't have got through 2005 without AJ Styles. I'll say it like that.
2005 TNA, I will put up against a lot of different years of WWE, and you can't show me like better cards, better pay-per-views. I mean, it's arguable because it's a mix of like WWE, WCW has-beens trying to like put together good stuff, but to me, it's TNA 2005 is the gold.
Right.
Now, Jesse, previously on a podcast, I had told a story about you trying to buy, or you wanting to buy a UWF belt, and I botched the story to no end. Can you tell the full story?
Is this
and
the
just
one in Philly?
Oh, it's the one in Philly.
Oh man.
All right, so let me backtrack a little bit. When we knew we were going to Philly for the Wrestling Icons convention at the 2300 Arena, the former ECW arena, I told Chief, I said, if we're going to this convention, I think I'm finally going to pull the trigger and buy a replica belt. And he's like, yeah, I mean, you should totally do it. I mean, you know, you could probably find one that's inexpensive, whatnot. And I'm like, well, shit, you know, let's see what goes on. So we get there, and we're looking at all the different tables. Mind you, this convention is wild. Not only the people there, like A to Z, you can name like crazy different wrestlers that are there. But, like, the guys that are selling old wrestling figures for cheap and all that. So I come across this one vendor. It's actually a couple vendors. And they've got, like, old autographed, like, Cauliflower Ollie autograph pictures of different guys and all that. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is kind of nuts. Then over to the side, you have a replica NWA TV title and a replica UWF TV title. And I'm like, wow. So I asked the guy, I'm like, so what's the prices on these? And he told me, I think one was like $360 and the one was like $400. I couldn't tell you which one was which.
I thought it was the actual belt, though, not the replica, right? Wasn't it the actual title itself?
It looked like it. I mean, the way it was aged.
Yeah, I think it was.
Like, I'm like, this could have been TV. Like, this could have been like NWA used. But anyways.
Yeah, I think it was the NWA one because it was the red strap. I feel like that was the actual title, but I don't know for sure though. But what were you saying?
So, anyways, the guy comes up that owns the belt because he was off doing whatever the fuck, and his buddy goes, "Oh yeah, this guy wants to buy the belt off you." And this guy, mind you, looks like a freaking one of the Dawson brothers from NWA Power.
Right, I remember that. Yeah.
And in my best impression of him, he was like, "Oh, fake fuck, brother."
Yeah.
He almost kind of sounded like Jim Cornette, but a little bit higher.
He was so appreciative. Yeah.
And he's like, oh, goddamn thing, brother. He was like, hell yeah, you're gonna buy this belt off me? Oh, thank you. And this guy's like shaking I don't even know this guy, and he's shaking my hand.
Yeah.
And he's like hugging me. Right. And he's like, the belt's yours, you got the cash. And I cash in hand, right to give to him and everything. And I'm like, all right, man, let's see this thing. And he goes, all right, but the only thing is this. And he picks up the belt, and he folds back the main plate. The main plate's only half on.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa. And he goes, what? He goes, all you have to do is super glue it or, he's like, you gotta super glue it,
yeah.
You gotta tack it back on. Like, you gotta tack it back on, like, weld it. I'm like, whoa.
That's right.
You just gotta weld it.
Deal. I'm like, no deal. And he goes, oh man, are you kidding me? Mind you, this guy had my fucking cash already in his hand, and I'm holding the belt, and I'm like, no, we are not doing this. I'm like, I'm sorry. And at that point, I'm thinking, all right, that UWF belt is mine. I mean, that one's a little bit beat up, but I'm like, I can't pass on that. Then once I realized that one was signed by One Man Gang, I'm like, oh, well, shit. I mean, I didn't really want any of them. And those are the only two belts that were for sale there, so the guy was really bummed out that, I didn't want to buy it. And I'm surprised he actually gave me my fucking money back. If not, one of those Philly police guys that were walking around would have fucking known about it. But anyways.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't get carnied out of that money. You almost got fucked there.
Yeah, I was with him. I remember that.
Yeah, oh yeah, because I was infatuated with it. I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, I could tote around this fucking belt like I'm Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard. I'm like, I am fucking, at this point too, I'm like, I'm all revved up on the day too because I saw this belt. We walked by Tony Atlas. I'm wearing a Stone Cold shirt, and Tony Atlas is going, what? And he's and Tony Atlas trying to con me out of a fucking $5 picture with him. That's how cheap it was, I think. It was like $5 to get a picture with Tony Atlas. I'm like, God damn. I'm like, no, bud, thanks.
That's not a bad picture, considering.
Yeah, anyways, I ended up getting a T-shirt from some random guy. And then I ended up getting pictures of like Scott Steiner, the Steiner brothers, and Terry Funk. But all in all, it was a good convention.
Nice. Now, we haven't brought it, I don't think we brought it up yet, but you're actually a dad. And what is it like to be a dad and a wrestling fan? Do you think your son's going to get into wrestling? Are you going to try and kind of push him towards it? Is there going to be any wrestling that you're like, we don't watch that shit here?
Well, I gotta backtrack a little bit. My wife, it doesn't matter what I put on for wrestling. Oh, you're watching this again? And I have to explain to her, no, this is new. Like, for example, every week, Tuesday, 6:05, NWA Power, watching on YouTube. It's amazing. I'll put it on Tuesday nights, and she's like, oh, you're watching this again? How many times have you seen this? I'm like, how many times do I have to tell you, honey? NWA Power. It's a new every single week. And she was like, oh. She goes, well, how long is it? I'm like, an hour. Just like last week and the week before that. Oh, okay.
I told him he's on the power.
This is going on our NWA theme week right
I
there.
know,
Let's
he's
do
in the
audio
power
right there.
themed episode.
It's definitely
Tell my wife to
with,
shut up.
with NXT. I would definitely say it's probably those are probably the top 2 shows going right now.
Yeah, I mean, we're actually going to include your interview. We just interviewed Tim Storm, and we're about to interview Joe Galley tonight. So it's really opportune that you're kind of putting over NWA.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's arguably the best show up against NXT. I'm not really high on AEW anymore, but I think that's a conversation that I'm better suited to have with Jim Cornette than anybody else.
Yeah, his illegitimate father, yeah.
Well, goddamn. But what is kind of your son gravitating towards at this moment? And, like, what have you had him watch? Like, has he watched the Dome show yet?
Well, with his early months, because he's only a year and a half old, with his early months, if you'd wake me up in the middle of the night and he needed a bottle, like this is like 2 or 3 months in, and he'd keep me up like early hours of the morning, like 2 to 4 a.m., around there, I'd throw on the WWE Network and be like, all right, bud, if you're keeping me up, then we're going to watch some. And I'd throw on like random ECW pay-per-views, random NWA pay-per-views, you know. And, you know, he'd sit there just because of the movement and the colors and all that. But, you know, I'd throw that on. I mean, sometimes I'd watch him if I have, like, YouTube on, and if I'm watching, like, a shoot clip or something, which he shouldn't really be watching, honestly, the shoot clips, because they swear a lot. But he'd sit on the floor and watch that. I mean, if he's awake, he'll watch, like, NXT and all that. He'll sit on the floor and watch it. He's actually inherited, like, a lot of Sheaf and Ice figures from when we were kids, and, you know, he kind of plays with them, you know, kind of chews on them, whatever. This past Christmas...
Chewing on Benoit.
There's a Benoit figure?
There's tons of them. There's a
Joe,
dozen. Oh, yeah.
Hey, the kid's got to get revenge, right? Take one back for the youngins.
That's a rabbit hole you don't want to go down, Joe, believe me.
Oh, I've opened the door on this podcast, and I've been told to shut the fuck
Benoit
up.
action figures, yeah, there's dozens. But, all right.
But yeah, this past Christmas, Sheaf actually got him a couple of Bleacher Creatures. They're kind of like the old wrestling buddies, but smaller.
Oh, wow.
And they're like plush toys. And he got a Finn Balor and Rey Mysterio. And that's probably his 2 favorite Mattel figures, too, that I've bought him. Like, for some reason, he likes... I think it's like he gravitates to, like, stuff that's orange. And the Rey Mysterio I got him is like WCW era Rey Mysterio, and he's on all orange gear. And yeah, he likes those. He plays around with those. But other than that, I mean, he'll pretty much watch whatever's on TV, which is kind of scary because at this point, his brain's like a sponge. So whatever I put on and watch for TV and he's around, he's going to watch it. But yeah, he's pretty much seen it all already. I don't know if he can recollect it or be able to recollect it when he's older. But yeah, he's seen some pretty iconic matches already.
Can we put Jesse on with Joe Galley?
Little Jax from New Hampshire is going to be in his kindergarten classes telling kids about Hayabusa. Like, hey, have you seen the great Sasuke? This guy jumps in a barrel and just crushes guys.
He's going to be telling kids about Chris Benoit and all
man.
that.
Oh.
And then,
That'll go over well in a 6-year-old, 7-year-old classroom.
oh yeah, because those kids that left wrestling in middle school when Sheaf and I were still watching it every week, I'll be like, oh yeah, that's the guy that killed himself and his family and all that. I used to watch him versus Chris Jericho in the ladder match and all that.
That's wild that's going to be Benoit's legacy when he was such a good worker. But obviously, if you go out of life on that note, I mean, it's going to be a stain on you.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of fans like to focus on what he did at the end of his life. But then there's a lot more fans that like to focus on the actual worker and the actual, you know, character and all that. Like, I still find myself enjoying, like, his WWE stuff. I'll put on, like, his Japan stuff once in a while, especially his ECW stuff. I mean, the guy broke Sabu's neck.
Yeah, that was crucial. Yeah, that was pretty nuts.
One of many necks,
I actually remember
apparently,
watching that with AJ.
I mean, that's one of my earliest ECW memories. I remember watching, like, a videotape of Sheaf's, probably, and, like, they just replayed over and over, like, Sabu just getting dropped on his head.
Damn.
It
Well,
wasn't the last time.
Jesse, we hate to wrap this up so early. We're going to have you again on the show, but is there anything, do you want to plug where to find you on Twitter or anything to the people?
All right, I'm on Twitter at Jesse from NH23. I'm also on Facebook. I mean, you can add me on Facebook, but I don't usually talk wrestling too much on Facebook.
Yeah, don't blow up your shit, people. Come on.
That's right.
Yeah, Facebook's usually just for the family now, so they can see pictures of Jackson. But I'm on Instagram. I post once in a while. I'm always sharing a bunch of different pictures from a bunch of different people. Instagram's like, besides Twitter, it's got to be like the forefront of wrestling fans now with all the different pictures and videos that people share. It's mind-blowing what you can see on Instagram compared to Twitter.
Honestly.
Twitter's more people bitching about wrestling and talking about it. Instagram's more people sharing pictures and memories and videos.
That's right.
Well, excellent. We're glad to have you on, and excellent, man.
You did great, buddy.
We're going to have you on again.
All right, so that wraps us up for this week. Thank you again for listening to the Working Fans Podcast. So as always, you can find us on Twitter at FansWorking. Our Facebook page is Working Fans Wrestling Pod. We have email where you can reach out to us and let us know what you think also. That's workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram, workingfanswrestling_pod. And then as always, please continue to listen to us on Anchor.fm, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, all your major platforms. If you're following us on Apple Podcasts, which we are also on now, and YouTube, please make sure you subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. It helps us bring you these podcasts where we get to talk to you and talk with you every week.
Working Fans Podcast. Cool.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Coming down 3, 2.
Hello, this is Ricky Morton of the Rock and Roll Express, and you are listening to the Working Fan Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Working Fans Podcast with Dave and AJ. And today we got National Wrestling Alliance great, the one and only 9-time tag team champion with Robert Gibson, the ultimate babyface, Ricky Morton of the Rock and Roll Express. Ricky, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing real good, man. Thank you for having me on your show today. You know, it's just another day at the office, my friend.
Awesome to hear, man. Well, let's start right in the beginning. You trained with your father and a guy named Ken Lucas. So Paul Morton, Ken Lucas, how was it breaking into business?
Well, you know, coming from a wrestling family, when I first started, you know, the whole business was different. Really sacred. It's hard. It was hard to get in. And don't think just because my dad was a wrestler or a referee that I had it easy in any way. As a matter of fact, I think it was just a little bit harder. It's the same thing, you know, my son wants to be a wrestler, and it's hard to get your family into the business once you're in there. I mean, for certain people it is anyway. My dad, he spent all his life in the wrestling business. He wrestled in the 50s and 60s, and then he refereed for the Memphis Wrestling. It goes and on his times when I broke into the business. You was mentioned earlier about Ken Lucas, but before that route, you know, I had a lot of them. You know, you learn. I was partners with a guy named Sonny King. Me and Eddie Gilbert was partners before me and Ken Lucas were. Me and Eddie were in Oklahoma territory together with Leroy McGurk. Skandar Akbar was the booker. And then I left there and I went back to Memphis, and that's when me and Ken Lucas teamed up. Kenny and I, we went to San Antonio for Southwest Championship Wrestling that was owned by Tully Blanchard's dad, Joe Blanchard. And then that's where I first met Tully. Matter of fact, him and Gino Hernandez were partners at that time. And then Ken Lucas did that. But, you know, and people a lot of times tell me, Ricky Morton, you're one of the greatest baby faces in the world. But what people don't understand is they don't go back. They don't understand the history of professional wrestling. Ken Lucas is one of the greatest baby faces of all time in our business. He just never got the recognition. Nowadays, the people don't know him or knew who he is. Once you get a chance to check him out, go back in the days and look up Ken Lucas. And man, I'm telling you, he'll really blow your mind in our business by telling a story. The psychology in the ring. He was one of the best I ever learned from, man. And to me, he was the greatest of all.
Huh.
Hi, Ricky. My name's AJ. I'm the co-host. I actually wrestled for 10 years. I trained with Adrian Street many, many years ago, and then worked through a lot of the South and then up here in the Northeast. And I am like yourself. I'm going to be a little quieter than I normally am, because to me, this is an opportunity to sit under the learning tree. It's the reason why I actually listen to the School of Morton podcast every week, because quite frankly, everything that you say means so much. And I've watched old footage of you and Ken Lucas teaming up together and actually working matches. And I think one of the things that we're missing today is they don't tell the story. People don't work the body parts anymore. They don't work the crowd the same way. And the reason why you were such a great babyface, in my opinion, was just the sympathy that you drew from having those body parts worked over on you and the way you bumped your ass off in the ring. So, Ricky, I just wanted to say thank you for that, and thank you for being on this podcast.
Yeah, you know what, AJ, thank you for mentioning that. And you see, I do have my wrestling school, and I try to tell people, this is really hard. Just this one simple thing. It's really hard to make the guys to understand that you got to understand our business before you can even do it. Matter of fact, I was at WrestleCade back at Thanksgiving time, which we had, what I'm saying is, but they had the night, on a Friday night, they had, like, a lot of the promoters brought some of their top guys in to wrestle. And, and I wasn't doing nothing, so I walked over to the Civic Center, and I was going to sit down and watch some of the match. And it really just blew my mind. The first match, I think it started out with a Hurricane Carolina off the top rope to the floor. And then I'm thinking to myself, where the hell are you going to go from here? Nobody knows. And then, after the second match, they asked me, so where'd you go? And I said, dude, I feel like I'm watching Andy Griffith rerun. Every match is the same. You're all doing the same high spots. You're trying to outdo each other. And the one simplest thing that none of you have did all night, I haven't seen one of you grab a wrestling hold. Not a headlock, not an arm.
Right.
It's just like you got a playbook written on your arm, high spot number 1, high spot number 2, high spot number 3, and none of it means nothing. To the average wrestling fan that is today, to them, I don't know. But if you go back in the era of, especially when we worked the Midnight Express and when we worked the Four Horsemen, Robert and I, and me, Russell, and Ric Flair, we told a story. Before, and this is really funny, because we never. And I'm going back to the thing again, I tell you a lot about how the business used to be. No, I didn't walk 20 miles barefooted in snow down. No, nothing like that. But what I'm saying is the baby faces and the heels never talked. You never seen that.
Right.
We were on separate sides of the building. Matter of fact, you get fired if you even got close to a baby face or heel, because our business was sacred. 9 out of 10 times, unless you was at TV, but you didn't go to the mat, all you got was a finish. Me and Robert walking to the ring is normally when we got our finish, and it wasn't this and you got to do that. It's baby face is over or the heel's over. That's all they told you. We'd go out and do our shows, but you see, it's just a different time, different place for our business. But if entertainment part of it, like you watch WWE and you watch these right here. And sometimes, to me, I really get lost just wondering what they're going to do next. And what really blows my mind is I wonder if a lot of people have got really, really seriously hurt more than what they are. And it's going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
It's really going to happen. Because the guys don't know how to take care of each other no more. I see them on there sometimes just kick their brains out. There's no need for that. If you know how to work in our business, you don't have to do that. And something's going to have to change somewhere around the time. And when it does, that's when Ricky Morton's going to step in. To let these guys understand, it's more to our business than, I was watching TV the other night, and I told my wife, and I says, well, this guy here is fixing to do something really spectacular. She said, how you know? I said, there's 20 guys on the floor going to catch it.
Right.
Yeah, man, and things just changed.
Well,
looking forward to, how you doing, one guys? And I know that y'all asked the questions. But,
No, please, Ricky. No, I was just going to mention.
The new year 2020, but man, 2019, and you go back to TUC, NWA, and you see that. But last year, I think Robert and I, at me being 63 years old, had one of the greatest years we had in business.
Right.
I was never on a contract. Never had a contract in my life. made a lot of people rich. And this is what nobody understands. I stood up to the boys in my day, and it's not the guys in my era or the guys after that. It's the guys right now in our business that respect what Robert and I have done. I don't know. A lot of times, I try to get a job at big companies, not to wrestle, but to work in the back. And it's like I'm a threat to a lot of people. But when you go into today, when they call us in, it's so much respect that these young kids that don't have to, that show Robert and I some of the greatest respect, and they listen to a lot of things that I'm talking about. I'm hoping that 2020 top 2019, especially being at the age I am, because I'm not here in this business to prove a point. I'm not here to be somebody that I'm not. I still depend on wrestling for a living. Like you said, dude, my biggest year in the wrestling business was $125,000, and that was in 1985. I'm hoping to see. That's what I'm saying, and I think that Robert and I did. We paved the roads because I wanted back in 1985 and '86. I knew that our wrestling business, some of our people could be as famous as some of these great football players or great athletes in our business. And what it come to. But see, we got left behind because I'm the one that took the heat for everybody. I mean, and I did. I told promoters I stuck up for the boys. But a lot of it is too, but it's my fault because I wasn't
political.
Go back over again and get my education a lot better. I wasn't educated enough to know what was really going on, but I was educated enough to know that I fought for the boys.
Yeah.
To get them where they're at today.
It's funny, like you're saying, it almost seems like wrestling reflects society in a way. Everybody is nicer and more respectful on one hand, which is really nice. Like, in a sense, I think you do have a lot more understanding in the world now than you did maybe years ago. But on the flip side of that, everything is so fast-paced. And, like, you watch a TV series, now you can watch a whole season in, one sitting. You can just spend, Netflix will just down you a whole series. And I feel like wrestling is kind of that way too. It's just everything is fast, and there's all this crazy stuff happening, like you said. But when I was a kid, I was more glued to it because, you only had wrestling once a week, TV, a lot of enhancement matches. Maybe you get one big main event match, and then you had to go to the arena or buy a pay-per-view. And it just meant more because you had to wait. There wasn't so much of it. Yeah, but you know what? And I've thought about the same thing. But if these guys would slow down a little bit instead of making something happen, everything happened in one night. You read a great book. You read a great book, but if normally when you write a book, you write the finish first. The ending of the book is written before the rest of the book is. So if they could sit down and just keep you interested in that whole program like a book does until you get to the finish. But now it seems like they're trying to, they write the whole book in one night. And if it ain't working, they change to something else. That's just my opinion. Opinions like your ass. Everybody's got one. Right.
Well, Rick, I think it also goes back to what you were talking about. When you were talking before, you mentioned the fact that you'll watch the first match and you see somebody doing one of those super hurricanrana flippity flu things in the first match, and you don't go to a movie or a book and see the biggest action happen in the first match, the second match. Back in the good old days, and I love to say that, when wrestling was wrestling and not sports entertainment, what we did was we built matches and built up a storyline to the main event. You weren't trying to have...
Well, when I started in the business, when I first went to Memphis territory, and guys, the Memphis territory was the hottest wrestling bed ever in its time when you had territories. Memphis Coliseum, every Monday night it was sold out. Every Tuesday, Louisville, Wednesday, Evansville. But these buildings, we didn't, it's they come to your town once a year. They sold out every week. Could you imagine WWE coming to the same town every Monday night and doing Monday Night Raw?
Sure. Right.
How many people would you have out in the crowd?
Oh, yeah. Okay. It ain't going to happen.
About 6 weeks, you'd be able to throw a hand grenade in there. It wouldn't hurt nobody.
Right. They're having trouble selling out doing what they're doing.
But what I'm trying to say is now, see the business when I was in Memphis. If you were the first match, you never do a punch. You work the headlock. Second match, maybe the arm. Third match, maybe that. Then you had your semi-main event, which was an angle on TV, maybe a tag team. And then you had your main event, Lawler or Dundee, whatever it was. And that's just the way it was. You know, even in my wrestlers, because I try to teach these guys, and I just mentioned this. Even right now, if you watch me wrestle, even though if I'm in there, I will always start my match off just to work up for me to ball my fist up. And, you know, instead of me just going in the ring, my fist up, throwing punches, doing it, I will go to 2 or 3 things where I'm outsmarting the heel, then the heel does something mean or cheats, and it gives me a reason just to ball my fist up. And to try to make people understand that, man, gosh, I'd be better off winning the lottery, I guess. But don't get me wrong, dude. I mean, I absolutely adore this business. I mean, I love it. It's nothing, you know, they had a saying, you know, if you love what you do, you never work a day of your life.
Absolutely.
Well, that's a bunch of bullshit.
That's good to know.
That's a bunch of bullshit. Okay. I told somebody today, man, I says, I wrestle for free. I get paid for traveling.
Right.
And I do. I mean, I love my business. And, you know, it's hard, you know, along the road, you know, in 85 when you work for territories, you never had a day off. And I'm serious. I can remember the times that Rick and I, man, we, you know, I think 17 days in a row we went an hour time limit. And that was 2 on Saturday and 2 on Sunday. Not counting the TV on Saturday morning. But, you know, it's just the way it was. I mean, that's the way territories were fought. And you got paid by how many butts you put in the seats. And you got paid, you know, the boys depended on you. You know, I didn't work main event just because I was there, you know, and I learned, let me tell you something, dude. You know, Dusty Rhodes was a booker, and I learned so much from Dusty. It's unbelievable. And one day I'll be able to have my ability, that somebody will hire me to show what I know in this business. But don't get me wrong, we didn't always get along together. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We had our fuses, but you know, I got to say that was great because we all depended on each other.
I got to tell you, before I forget, I want to get this out. I'm 43 years old, and I saw you wrestle, you know, as a young man, but I can't believe I've seen you live twice, and it was both in 2019. I saw you at an independent show at Beyond Wrestling in New Japan. So when you talk about still going strong, like it's crazy, man.
Oh, man, I think, where'd you see us? What show did you see me at New Japan?
The Mask show.
Yeah, man, that was really cool up there that night. We wrestled Chase Owens.
Yep.
And this guy, you know, Chase is one of my students from my school. Chase is one of the few and far between. He has a good thing going in Japan, but God, man, he can work a match. So unbelievable and tell that story, but I took a lot of time with him. Yeah. But thank you. You know what? That's really cool, and I hope you get to see them more. You know, New Japan's got to be back here. We were going to be formed the 24th, but we got to do NWA. We have to do a whole other season of taping, 24th, 25th, and 26th. But then we leave straight from there. We go to New Japan shows again. Matter of fact, I think we're going to be in Raleigh, Miami, and Nashville, Atlanta.
And Ricky,
I'm looking forward to that.
Ricky, how do you feel about the NWA being back? Does that got to be exciting?
Yeah, it's exciting. And see, it's another thing, you know, and stop to think about this. It's not me trying to be something that I'm not. Like I keep repeating myself. When they tell us they're going to put the belts on us, I really was skeptical of it. But then I understood what they were doing, okay? Man, you keep watching this series because I don't give spoiler works, but it works into where me and Nick Addis has a match. It's really cool. I want you guys to watch that match.
Oh, yeah, we've been watching every week.
We saw this Tuesday, we saw you come out at the end and you stole the show.
Yeah.
With your just the altercation.
Yes, and you see, and this is what, really listen to this right here. It's like those guys that work there. You know Wild Card Thomas.
Yep.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. See, a lot of people just don't understand how good he is. And you see, it's not what he does, it's what he don't do when I get in the ring with him. This is my talk. I really don't want, you know, and I still can't say it, bro. I ain't bullshitting. I still believe in my business. But there's the things that he does in the ring with me that makes me look like I'm 19 years old. because he knows, and I didn't have to tell it. That's what I like about it. It's what our business is missing today. And a lot of you guys, everybody listen, it ain't what you do, it's what you don't do. And it's the greatest things in the world. Keep watching NWA because it only gets better. I promise you it does. They have a lot of great talent on there, guys. A lot of great talent. And I love to sit in the back and just watch them. They do a lot of great things on there, and I don't know how far to go. But I hope it lasts us forever because right now it's a great show, great ratings, and I know that their pay-per-view, they was hoping for this much, and they got 6 times that.
Oh, nice.
So I thought it was pretty good. Yes.
Ricky, one of the things that I appreciate that you're doing is that you don't go too far into it and that you do keep some of the mystique that is the wrestling. Having worked for the 10 years, one of the things that I told these guys when we started the podcast is that I will never go into exactly what we do, what kind of things we communicate with each other, how we do things in the ring. And the reason why I don't do that is because at the end of the day, it's like a great magician. You don't go to a magic show wanting to know how to do the trick. You go to a magic show to be entertained. And if we tell everybody every little thing that we do and how we do it, it takes away from the wrestling that we love so much.
Yeah, but you see, man, nowadays everywhere you go, and I hate this, guys walk up to you and they think that they're giving you the wrestler's handshake.
Oh, God, I hate that.
They don't have a damn clue what it even means. And they look at you like I'm supposed to. Look here, bud. You don't have a clue what you just did to me.
Yeah.
You don't even understand what that means. And whoever told you what that means, or if they're the ones that trained you, they have no business even training you.
I agree.
I meet a lot of guys, and if you're interested in being a professional wrestler, you have to go to somebody that knows what they're doing, how to train you. You just can't go. I talk to people all the time. Who trained you? So-and-so. What the hell is this place at? Or what's this guy's name? I never even heard of him before. What's he doing training you? What company do you ever work for? And it's nothing. And then they expect to get in the ring with me, and it don't happen. But, every now and then, buddy, I hit the lottery. I get in the ring with some guys that are really phenomenal. And I'm going to say one of them right now is Santana and Ortiz, the LEX that used to be. Well, and I'm going to kayfabe my business too, but I'm going to tell you this. There's 2 guys, wherever they got and wherever they go in, they deserve it. They are absolutely phenomenal in the ring.
Wow.
And and I'm serious. The great matter of fact is, I guess they're the ones that put Robert and I back on the map, really, to tell you the truth. And I don't have, I'm not ashamed to say that. They're a real big deal in AEW, which next Wednesday night I will be back.
Oh, no kidding. Awesome.
Next Wednesday, the 8th, I'll be back on AEW. I'm looking forward to going there because what I'm saying to you is the guys now that still take care of Robert and I. Because, and what I was telling you earlier, I don't know if I'll finish it, I still depend on wrestling to make a living, guys.
Right.
And I do. And like I was telling you earlier, I just not be being on TV trying to be something that I'm not. This is the only thing I know. I'm not a doctor. I don't have a doctor's degree. I barely have a high school education. But wrestling, I have a PhD in. And these guys, these days, and that's what I appreciate. They're the ones that take care of us. NWA, all these guys, and they treat me with the most upright respect that you could ever imagine, fellas. And don't think I don't ever appreciate that, and don't think that before I leave that building, I'll let everybody in that building know how I feel. Meet a lot of young guys with a lot of great talent on the independent circuit. But our business is not based on, which I'm going back to the wrestlers, because it's not based on what you do. It's just being at the right place at the right time. And being at the right place at the right time is when somebody asks you to do something, you know how to do it. There's no questions asked. There's nothing that you know what they're talking about and know how to do it, because that's how you get our jobs. Same thing I was saying, people like me and people like it in our wrestling business. I even say this, even Hunter Henson, if you even watched him, he can know if you know how to work or not. But see, you don't go in the ring and start the match off with a hurricane cry. You understand me? I can look at guys and tell them if they know how to work or not. I can look at guys and tell them if I'm going to do anything that night, because I don't want them to hurt me. you know, I still got to wrestle next weekend to pay my bills, and that's just the way. I don't know what track I got up on, but buddy, I'm way out there right now. Okay.
Ricky, speaking of being in the right place at the right time, we did an interview earlier today with Nikita Koloff, and he was telling us a story, and he didn't tell us the full story because he said you tell the story much better than he does, where as a very green and young Nikita was in the ring for one of his first couple matches that he got to wrestle.
I could take it over from here.
Go ahead.
I can take it. I know exactly where you're going to. Robert and I there, you know, at the time when we come into NWA, Nikita was there, but he hadn't been. You have to be in a ring to work and learn our business. It takes you a long time. We was doing most of the work with Barry Dorso and Ivan Koloff, and here comes Nikita in the ring. And is it all right to say? I mean, I have said a couple of bad words.
Ricky, you can say
you can say whatever you want. Yeah, anything. That's all good.
I get in the ring, I start the match off with Nikita, I lock up with him, and see, this is the part about training. God, man, he headbutted me so hard, I almost knocked me out. And I went, holy crap. You know, and I rubbed my head, and I went, okay, accident. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Then I locked up with him again, headbutted me again.
Oh.
Holy crap. And maybe I'll tell you another good story, but remind me another one. That buttered me again, and I walked over, I was rubbing my head, and I walked over to Robert, and I said, pull this big son of a bitch off me. I went to lock up with him again. When he do, I threw my elbow up there, and it hit him in the eye, and it split his eye wide open.
Oh, man.
He was cussing, hollering, and screaming, and fighting, blah, blah, blah. But then when I locked up with him the third time, he had that head all the way back. He didn't headbutt me no more.
There you go. All right.
I hope that's what he told you.
Oh, yeah.
Another one like that, Johnny, at this time, you know, this is LBJ. He used to wrestle this Johnny Hawk.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
When we first broke into business. Oh, yeah. And, that's when we were for Crockett. That's when he moved to Dallas. Took, you know, NWA went to Dallas after WCW and bought him out. You know, all that stuff. So, forgot me and Robert were working with him and somebody, and he told, you know, I'm not that kind of guy. I'm not because he's a big bad dude. You hear me? So I told him, I said, "Snatch the hell out, give me a big towel." Well, buddy, he hit that rope, and he hit me so hard that it damn near knocked me through the ropes to the floor. And the same thing, I rolled back in the ring, and I told Robert, I says, "Come in here and pull this son of a bitch off me." And I told him, I says, he got me the turnbuckle, and I said, man, give me a turnbuckle, come charging fast as you can. And when he come charging as fast as he can, I come out of that turnbuckle, and I hit him hard as I can, right in the mouth. But boom, but you see, he's a big, tough, bad guy. And then when I hit him real hard, he looked at me so pitiful, and he goes, what did you do that for? and I looked at him, I went, because I'm just a dumb son of a bitch, I guess. I'm just, because it didn't phase it. You understand me? And he goes, was that a receipt? I says, yeah, I think so. Then I walked over to tag Robert.
Oh, man.
But if you ever see him, ask him about that. I mean, it's really a great story.
Awesome.
Cool.
One other thing I wanted to ask you, too, because you were talking about your school and you talk about training and people think. We had Al Snow on here about a couple months ago, and he runs a school down Ohio Valley Wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and he was telling us the same thing, basically, that there's a lot of people who probably shouldn't be training today, and that back in the day that you were a reflection of where you came from, that he said if he did anything wrong, even to this day, like he would hear about it from his trainer, and you get blackballed.
So, see, in my day, I worked the territory.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about guys like you were tough. Gypsy Joe, all them guys. They would give you one spot, and if you messed it up, they didn't hurt you, but they just ate your lunch. They chopped you hard. They hit you across the back hard. And you didn't get another spot. You hear me?
Yeah.
And that's the same thing. That's the way you did learn. I seen a lot of crazy stuff in this business. But, you know, when you was one in the business, you know, he didn't try to hurt you, but they try to make you learn. And, yeah, and, you know, it's like me when I send some of my guys out. See, it's my responsibility to make them do that. You know, matter of fact, one of my guys, went to Al Snow's Ring of Honor. His name's Luscious Lawrence. You get a chance to check him out. He's unbelievable. He's going to be a superstar in our business. You know, I have a little school down here in Chuckey, Tennessee, out in the middle of nowhere, where we train 3 times a week. But it's for the boys, you know. They go for me, and I was glad that he went to Ohio Valley to get out, because he gets more exposure. And if you guys get a chance, man, maybe you know what? We're probably this Sunday we'll have a live show on YouTube. I have live shows on YouTube. Off the School of Morton. We do a lot of stuff on there, man. We have our own production. Matter of fact, we come on CWTV Eastern Time every Saturday at 12:30. We do a lot. I have a lot of good guys there that, you know what, man, and I just want them to live out their dream. Even if they don't make it, I can give them a chance, because my thing is to teach them about no matter what you become or what you do, is to never give up. When I first broke into business, I was told that I would never make it in the business. I was too small, which at the time, wrestling was different. You know, you didn't have the big bodybuilder guys, which you did, a few of them, but a lot of them were 400 or 500 pounds, just big old guys. And you see, our business did change for the best because of that. Because nowadays, even though we're our entertainment, dude, if you're not in physical shape, if you're not a real professional athlete, you're not going to make it 5 minutes in the ring. You have to train, you know. I guess, AJ, you can understand me. You got to train to take bumps. You just can't go in the ring and do. You know, I have guys that come into my school every now and then. You'll have a prick that walks in there that thinks he knows everything, and I want to be a professional wrestler. And I says, okay, really? Yeah, I can do this. Anybody can do this.
Oh, Jesus.
And I don't know, and I just tell myself, all right, just roll in the ring, and I just want you to hit the ropes 20 times. Okay. And I know, and if you're a wrestler, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yes.
And you never hit them ropes. Look here, about that 8th time he hit it, he rolled out of the ring, grabbed his phone, he says, I have an emergency, I got to go. And you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You got to go, fella.
Back to what you were talking about, Ricky. When I trained with Adrian Street, he had that old-fashioned mentality of training, and it was a good way of training that he would teach me the holds, and he would teach me, obviously, how to take bumps and stuff of that nature. But if I didn't do holds right with him, he would sink it in a little deeper on me, or he would change the angle a little bit. And next thing you know, I was hooting and hollering like a little schoolgirl. And I'm 6'3", 280 pounds.
Have you ever heard about the dungeon from Stu Hart?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God.
Oh, yes. You know, I have a dungeon in my school, but I don't use it for that. You know, the world's changed now.
I'm planning on this year.
You know, Adrian, you know, and everybody that know, you know, Adrian was a tough guy. And I'm telling you what, Linda was tougher than him.
Oh, we heard. Yeah.
Oh, yes. His wife, I absolutely love Adrian.
Having gone out for drinks with the two of them, oi.
Yeah. I was in the era where I got to work with him a lot in Memphis and in Louisiana. Adrian's the only guy in the world I know that can work your cheek, you know, in a match. You ever did that to you?
Oh, God, yes. Absolutely.
Some of the greatest stuff in the world that nobody even imagined that made it different.
I'll tell you, people thought that I was making up some of the stuff that I told them about my training with Adrian Street. And then WWF did that special this year on Adrian Street. And he talked about the stuff that he did that these guys didn't realize that he had done. And they're like, holy shit, you were telling the truth. Because they couldn't believe he did that.
And, you have that. You know, that over in England and all that place, Adrian Street, man, he was one of those guys, you know, he was a killer. You know, I first met Adrian. Did he ever tell you about the Russian pretzel hoat?
Oh, God. Please. That's just a nightmare. Oh, my God, I'm having flashbacks.
Well, this is what I call it, the Russian pretzel hoat, because, you know, once Adrian put it on you, you couldn't get out of it. And Adrian did. He got it on me, and then I got out of it. And he asked me, he says, how did you get out of it? I said, well, first of all, Adrian, when you put that on me, I looked up and I seen a big set of balls. It's amazing what you do when you bite your own nuts.
Exactly. Well,
But no, guys, I hope I didn't offend nobody.
No, please,
that's awesome.
Ricky. When they put me in it, it was like being there with a boa constrictor. The more I tried to fight, the farther I felt like I was trapped.
You know what? When he said, when I left the part out, I told when he said, "How'd you get out of us?" And so when I looked up at that Russian pretzel hole, I said, "Big set of balls." And then I said, "It's amazing what you do when you bite your own nuts." You know.
Oh goodness!
Adrian, I have a lot of good times with Adrian. We work territories together. You had to take care of each other. You know, if I was hurt, we couldn't do things. And when you was working on top of that territory, you know, it's a whole different standard because you got to carry the territory. Make sure that the people believe in what you're doing. See me, even at being 63, when I go to the ring, I try, unless, you know, but I try to make the people believe what I'm doing. And that's the secret of our business, too. When I sell, if I can convince the guy on the front row that whatever the heel's doing to me, that's what's really happening. And that's when you learn. If you're out there and you're a good heel and you're a good baby face, you can actually learn how to sell one punch better than you can 47. You can sell one kick better than you can 300. And you guys know where I'm going to from this.
Absolutely.
It's just too much. You know, in real life, if you stomp me in the head 30 times, I'm not getting up. No. Not today, not tomorrow, not next week.
Watch an MMA fight.
You've got to stop to understand.
I was saying, watch an MMA fight. That's not how that works. You know?
Yeah, I got you, gentlemen. Yeah. Hey, I know that I'll be able to interview with you fellas. Anything quick you want to ask me earlier? Because I'm going to Pigeon Forge to meet my wife.
Oh, yeah.
No, absolutely.
And I'm early in the morning, and I got to go to Durham, North Carolina. What's that?
I said, no problem. We only had two more things, actually. Yeah, we were going to ask you if you got any great road stories, and then if there's anything else you want to talk about, your school or promote.
Yeah, I got a lot of great road stories, but I probably caused a lot of divorces.
Just pick one you can tell.
Well, off my bat right now, I don't know. No, but we did a lot of things on the road together. Yeah. You know what? I tell you, the first time I ever went into Louisiana for Bill Watts, that's when Jim Duggan and Magnum TA were there. And, dude, there's a place called the Lighthouse in Alexandria, and they told me it was real asshole. Me and Robert, that's where we lived at, in Alexandria, and we got into Tearwood off that night, and I walk in, I see his hat's all Jim Duggan, and I see Magnum TA, he went to the best, and then all of a sudden something happened. And I seen a guy come running by with a tar or two in his hand. And Magnum TA was chasing him. But he hit Magnum in the back of the head, that tar, but he's chasing him. And then I look up, and here comes, it's like, man, like they would film in a movie. Jim Duggan is on the hood of a truck.
Oh, Jesus.
Holding on to it, and they're going across the park a lot, 100 miles an hour. The guy hits his brakes. Jim Duggan comes off of it, rolls about 6 times, and the guy's got the truck in reverse, and Jim Duggan's chasing the truck. That was my first night in the Louisiana territory.
Wow.
Yeah, that was close. I have some really good stories I could tell, but I just don't like telling them on the podcast.
No problem. No problem.
These.
Yeah, we don't want to get anybody in trouble, Ricky.
No. What is the second question?
Actually, is there anything you want to promote, your school or whatever? Go right for it.
Oh, yeah, man, please. I love seeing you guys. Everybody out there, you guys, too. Just go on Facebook, School of Morton, and check it out. Go through it. Everything there is done is really great. And for a guy with no education, check it out. We do everything there at our school. Another thing, if you're interested, I'm in a babyface Ricky Morton on Instagram. A lot of places, you see a lot of good stuff on there. I'm always in the back doing a lot of good stuff. And then regular Facebook, Ricky Morton. This weekend, tomorrow night, I'll be in Durham, North Carolina. I'll be in Spartanburg, the legendary home of NWA, buddy. One of our greatest places that we ever wrestled at. And then next Wednesday, guys, I'll be back at AEW every Tuesday night on YouTube, or you'll see NWA wrestling. And, buddy, it's old school wrestling. Y'all check it out. I really love being a part of that company. Matter of fact, I love being a part of all the companies because it used to be around the boys. The boys is what I stood up for all my life, and that's who I am. I love being around them. And if you guys get a chance to come and see us again, please come.
Will do.
And tell me who you are, and I'll take you to back and show you some things that you never even thought about. Okay?
Ricky, that sounds fantastic. Ricky, we really
man, thank y'all for having me on the show, and God, and me, I just tell you, I believe in God, and God bless you, and be careful through that. I hope this 2020 is going to be great to you.
Yes.
And just take it for what it's worth, and never take a day for granted, buddy. Okay? Know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Guys, thank you for listening to the 531 here on YouTube this week. If you like what you hear, you can always find us on Anchor FM, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and on the Apple Podcast where you can subscribe and also give us a 5-star rating. We appreciate you listening. We want your feedback, 531, and if you agree with us. If you disagree with us, we also want you to let us know, and let us know what your 531 would be. Come up with a top 5 and let us know, and we'll tell you why you're wrong. And in order for us to do that, please contact us on Twitter. We're at Fans Working. Facebook page, Working Fans Wrestling Pod. Email workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com. It's very important that you actually contact us on these platforms because we want this to be your